Hello people, this is my National History Day project on Walt Disney. So here's a synopsis. Mr. Walt Disney was born on December 5th, 1901 in Hernosha, Illinois. He and Roy, his brother, co-founded Disney October 16, 1923, which is one of the best-known motion picture production companies in the whole entire world. Now let's get into the history behind Walt Disney. Walt Disney was one of 5 children in his family, 4 boys and 1 girl. He lived in Marceline, Missouri most of his childhood, where the Disney sprouted out of him, you could say. He started drawing, painting, and selling pictures to his friends, family, and neighbors. But later, in 1911, he moved to Kansas City, where he started to develop a love for trains. Mike Martin, Walt's uncle, was an engineer for trains. Later, Walt worked a summer job for the railroad, selling snacks and newspapers to hungry and starving travelers. Later, when he gets older, he attends a school named McKinley High in Chicago. He took drawing and photography classes, and he was a contributing cartoonist for the school paper. During the night, he would take courses at Chicago Art Institute. Walt dropped out of school when he was 16 so he could be an army man, but he was rejected for being underage. So he joined the Red Cross instead. And the Red Cross sent Walt to France for a year to learn how to drive an ambulance. In 1919, Walt returned from France and moved back to Kansas City to pursue a career as a newspaper artist. Roy, his brother, of course, got him a job at Pressman Rubin Art Studio, where he met Ube Irks, or Ube Irks. There, Disney worked at Kansas City Film Ad Company, making commercials based on cutout animation. Around the same time, he started messing with a camera and doing hand-drawn cell animation, and decided to make his own business for animation. This was not Disney. His first employee was named Fred Harmon. Walt and Fred made a deal with the local Kansas City theater to screen their cartoons, which were called Laugh-O-Grams, which got really popular. Soon, Walt was able to acquire his own studio, which gave the same name as the cartoon, Laugh-O-Grams. He hired more employees, and he even hired Fred's brother, Hugh, and Ube Iwerks. They did a 7-minute series of fairy tales that combined live action and animation, which they call Alice in Cartoonland. By 1923, the studio had a lot of debt, and Walt was forced to declare bankruptcy. But later on, Walt and Roy pulled some money together and moved to Hollywood. Ube Works relocated to California, and there, the three began the Disney Brothers Studio. The first deal was with a New York distributor. Her name was Margaret Winkler. To distribute their Alice cartoons, they also invented a character called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and contracted the shorts at 1,500 times each. In 1925, Disney hired an ink and paint artist named Lillian Bonds. After a while of romantic build-ups, Lillian and Walt got married. So, a few years later, the Winklers and Charles Minton stole the rights to Oswald, and Walt found out, along with the animators at Disney, except for Iwerks. But right away, the Disney brothers, their wives, and Eworks produced 3 cartoons that feature the character that everybody knows. His name was Mickey Mouse. The first animated shorts featuring Mickey were named Plain Crazy and The Galloping Gancho. Both were silent films, and they failed to find distribution. When sounds were imported into the film, Walt created a third short that had sound and music, and it was called Steamboat Willie. Recognize it? Walt was the voice of Mickey in that current time, and the cartoon became popular. In 1929, with Mickey newly created with his friends, Walt created a short named Silly Symphonies. It was one of the most popular cartoons of the time. One of the first color shorts were called Flowers and Trees, and it won an Oscar. The 3 Little Piggies and its title song, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, became a theme for the country in the midst of the Great Depression. Here are some of the movies that Walt made in his lifetime. In 1955, Disneyland opened. It was a place where families could have fun and meet their favorite Disney characters. But 11 years later, Walt was diagnosed with lung cancer, and he died on December 15th, 1966. After that, Roy took charge and finished the Florida theme park in 1971 and named it Disney World. This is why Walt Disney is important, because he made popular characters and helped people through the Great Depression. And even after his death, he helped people get jobs, and without him, none of our favorite Disney movies would have been made.